Hey Cloud Gamers, today we're having a look at No Man's Sky across maximum settings, Shadow PC, Boosteroid and GeForce NOW. Starting with a quick speed test here then. If you don't like the speed test side, you can just skip to the graphics comparison a couple of minutes in. If you do like these videos and you do like cloud gaming in general, do hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all the latest across all cloud gaming platforms, and we'll get into this test. Starting off here then, we got the beautiful colour sequence of the loading screen for No Man's Sky. It does seem to be a bit stuttery on all platforms. I guess it's doing quite a lot of loading in the background. But the speed test here was quite surprising, as one of the platforms that we didn't quite expect to come first is the first to load here. And that's the maximum settings 1080 is fully loaded there in just under 53 seconds. Usually Shadow PC is the fastest here, so this must be quite a CPU intensive game, as the maximum setting CPU is slightly better. Shadow PC does come in second there, just under 1 minute 5. With GeForce NOW pulling in third at 1 minute 11, so Boosteroid is the slowest to load here. And it does feel like it takes quite a long time, but in reality it's really not that long at 1 minute 26. So all loaded in less than a minute and a half, but maximum settings the fastest there with 52 seconds. Moving over to the graphics side then, we start with some nighttime scenery. I must admit, No Man's Sky is an absolutely beautiful game to play. It takes a bit of getting used to. As we freeze frame here at one of the first sections on top of one of the mountains, you can see that Shadow PC and maximum settings seem to have a slight advantage here on the graphics side. Although these are all on high settings with a field of view of 80, for some reason Boosteroid seems more zoomed in. As we come to the ship here then, maximum settings and Shadow PC definitely looking the clearest here. But GeForce NOW is still looking very good. Boosteroid does look good, but it does seem to be a little bit oversaturated in comparison to the other two. As we take off then and freeze here looking out over the environment, once again they're all looking pretty good, but both GeForce NOW and Boosteroid seem to be a little bit off on the colours, whereas Shadow PC and maximum settings with the 1080 rig here are looking very clear, and those trail effects are pretty much even across the board here. So No Man's Sky looking very good no matter where you're looking to play at this point. As we take off and go into the pulse drive sequence then, before we go landing into a space station, again we see a bit of stutter on the Boosteroid side there, and those graphics looking very good, slightly better on maximum settings and Shadow PC. But when we come into land, it looks pretty equal across the board here. And as we land, we're going to look at one of the NPCs in the station. And as we look at the character model here, it's pretty even across the board in that close-up inside settings. So there really is not a lot to choose from here. There is some randomness on the NPC states, as you can see he's holding a tablet in 2 of these and not in the other 2. But looking at the character model and detail, they're both looking extremely good here. So going to move over to some single play here, starting off with Boosteroid, doing some scanning around first. Did notice a little bit of stutter on Boosteroid in comparison to the others. This was a little bit more obvious moving around. You can see as we're jumping around as well, there was a very small amount of input lag, but it was these kind of micro stutters that were a little bit more annoying. Not quite getting that magical 60 frames per second here either on Boosteroid. It did seem to be bouncing more between the 30 and 50 range. Definitely felt a lot closer to 30 at quite a few points here. As we're moving inside to look at one of the cargo pods here, it's looking extremely dark, and we can see as we're looking at the actual cargo pod kind of graphic here that it's a little bit jagged. So there are instances where Boosteroid does look quite a lot lower quality than the others, but overall it does a pretty good job. And if this is the only place you've got to play, it is more than acceptable. As we break out here into the environment, we'll move over to the GeForce NOW version. Although the frames per second in the top right here seem to stay at a solid 60 frames per second, in reality we are not getting 60 frames per second all of the time, although it is fairly close. It does dip down into the 50s and we can see that with some of the motion, but all in all it does seem to hold pretty well. I got a mixture of the 1080C and the 2080C rigs here when I was playing on GeForce NOW. Both seem to handle the game very well, although it did seem to look a little bit better on the 2080, which is what you're seeing here. Again, as we're moving around, we can see the quality is a bit better than what we were seeing on Boosteroid, and it's definitely a lot smoother. And again, as we come in and have a look at that cargo pod, when we see the graphic, although it's not as clear as the one in full screen, it did look a little bit better than the Boosteroid version. Again, as we break out here, we see some of those radiation effects, and we're going to move over to the maximum settings version. Again, we can see that most of the time we're sitting around that 60 frames per second mark, especially while scanning, but we are seeing dips into the 50s here. CPU is not doing a lot, but the GPU is being well utilized. I did try and push this up to Ultra and it wasn't really very playable. So it is still quite a graphically intense game, and the 1080 is best suited to high here. Again, those effects looking very good as we come in and look at the cargo pod on the maximum settings version. Looking pretty much the same across the board here for GeForce NOW, maximum settings, and you'll see that shadow looks pretty similar as well. So all in all, the PC equivalents are looking extremely sharp and at least holding close to that 60 frames per second mark. As we move over to the Shadow PC version, we can see again we're getting close to that 60 frames per second most of the time with the occasional dips. And again, that GPU sat quite high in comparison to the CPU. And again, I did try this on Ultra and it wasn't particularly playable, getting around the 30 frames per second mark, which did not do this game justice. But we can see, like maximum settings, the graphics are looking crisp. And as we go and start looking at the cargo pod again on the Shadow PC version, you can see those effects are very clear. As we come back side by side then to finish off, going to dock into the station once again across all four. No Man's Sky is definitely worth a look if you're looking for a chilled exploration game. I haven't looked at the multiplayer aspects, but there is a huge following for this game. It does have crossplay across console and PC, and it is also available on Game Pass now, so that you can play with the Xbox and PC players as well. Let me know what you think of No Man's Sky and the graphics quality that you are seeing here in the comments below, and where you will be looking to play in the cloud. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, stay up to date with all the latest across all cloud gaming platforms, and we will see you next time.